It's this simple. If you can't play, get off the stage. Get ready for the Friday feature interview of the week as we talk about that book by one Garret Woodward. Garret, before we dive into this book, tell us about yourself.
I'm originally from Rouse's Point, New York, which is exactly 1 mile from the Canadian border, just north of the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. I went to college in Connecticut at Quinnipiac University for journalism and history, and then from there I bounced around. I ended up with my first journalism gig in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, right around the time the economy tanked in '08, and then freelance for about 3 years covering music festivals around the United States. And then in the summer of 2012, I took a job with the Smoky Mountain News in Waynesville, and I'm the arts and entertainment editor there and also the music editor for Smoky Mountain Living magazine. I've been in North Carolina for 5 years, and it feels more like home than any other place I've ever lived.
How did you get inspired to write this book on bluegrass music?
For me, as someone who is obsessed with music and just loves storytelling and characters, real people from real backgrounds, bluegrass is something that I gravitated towards, especially since I moved here. I've always thought of it as the history of this country, the history of Southern Appalachia, and the history of, I guess you could say, the human condition. And with the project, the real backstory of it was my publisher, Scott McLeod, with the Smoky Mountain News, and I were hanging out. I think it was our Christmas party, our office Christmas party. And we were talking about things we wanted to do for the following year, or maybe a 5-year plan for the newspaper and also for Smoky Mountain Living magazine. And I said, the real thing I'd like to do in the next year is put out a bluegrass book. That idea came from last year when I got nominated for an IBMA for Bluegrass Writer of the Year. I didn't win, but I realized when I was sitting there in Raleigh thinking to myself, what's it going to take to win an award? But it's not even about winning the award. I wanted to set a goal. I realized that you need to do projects and you need to dive deeper than just weekly stories and cover stories and profiles. If I really want to pursue a life involved in bluegrass and in writing, I need to do projects. And the more I thought about it, the more I knew that putting out a book would be the next step.
Well, congratulations, by the way, for the honor of being nominated. When I opened the pages of your book, the introduction, you pay honor to one Peter Rowan, the cosmic cowboy.
Hey, jailer, throw away your key. Hey, jailer, jailer, throw away the key. Jailer, jailer, don't set me free.
Well, it kind of just happened that I realized one day that all I wanted to do was be around music and write about it. This was probably, I would say, around fall of 2006 when I was a senior in college at Quinnipiac. And at that time, and still to this day, I was a very huge Deadhead. I was really into the Grateful Dead, still am. And once you go down the rabbit hole of the Grateful Dead, you start finding other things, Americana, jazz, blues, bluegrass. And I was at a record store in New Haven, Connecticut, looking for whatever Dead album I hadn't owned yet. For some reason, Old and in the Way was tucked in there. As that album kicks off, you hear Peter Rowan talk. I was just captivated by his storytelling abilities. He's a very mesmerizing person. As that was happening, I had just started an internship with a music magazine, now defunct magazine called State of Mind Music out of Burlington, Vermont. The publisher, Mike McKinley, had said, well, I think it's time that you write a feature story. We want to see if you can do it. You've already proven you can do album reviews. You've already proven you can help with distribution and all that. Do you have any ideas? I had seen somewhere that Peter was playing at the Iron Horse Music Hall in Northampton, Massachusetts. And I just kind of threw it out there. I said, what about Peter Rowan? And at that time, as far as I remember, he was putting out an album with Tony Rice. One thing led to another. The funny little side story to that is I was supposed to interview him before the show, and he showed up late, and he was kind of bewildered from being on the road, and he just wasn't really in a good mood to chat. He just seemed kind of haggard. And I was kind of bummed out because this was my first interview, so I didn't know if I was actually going to do it. And I didn't know what I was doing, so I was just kind of playing it cool, like it was no big deal. Like, yeah, we'll talk after the show or whatever. He went down to the boiler room, which is the green room, he's like, I'm going to take a 20-minute nap. And it ended up being like an hour, and the show was in like another half. And he finally wakes up, like I said in the book, he's like this bear waking up, just like kind of snoring and, yawning. And it was really kind of loud. And he just woke up, and I go in there and I talk with him for about 20 minutes, half hour or so. And the interview came out, and that's kind of what sparked this whole journey. Kind of just took off from there. And over the last 10 years, we've crossed paths all over the United States. Now that I'm in North Carolina, one of Peter's favorite places to play is the Cataloochee Ranch in Maggie Valley. So he's up there about twice a year. And so that's been really cool to just have this friendship evolve.
What was his reaction when you contacted him and said, I'm doing this book, could I get you to contribute to it, which you did?
The more our friendship developed, the more I felt comfortable asking him. And he said he would be honored to do it. And he was actually kind of in a writing mode. As far as I know, he's been trying to put out a biography. It meant a lot to me that he wanted to be part of the project.
It's the Friday feature interview of the week. We're having a discussion with Garret Woodward, who has written the book, If You Can't Play, Get Off the Stage, Bluegrass in Western North Carolina and Beyond. Being as brief as you can, for one reason, we don't want you to give everything away, but we do want you to tell us about some of the various chapters in your book. Let's start with the one called It's Good to Be the Queen.
Rhonda Vincent.
I just drive the nails in my coffin. Every time I drink a bottle of booze, I just drive the nails in my coffin. Driving those nails over here.
Yeah, she is the queen of bluegrass. She's also quite possibly one of the most generous people I've ever crossed paths with. She's that type of person who will talk to anybody, who will sign any autograph, who will sincerely, when you see her on stage, there's no bull there. That is 100% performer who lives and dies for bluegrass music and also the community that it creates.
There was one thing you related to about Rhonda Vincent and other performers in the bluegrass industry.
Real people playing real instruments. They never have a chip on their shoulder. You're just kind of blown away that these people want to spend that much time talking to you. Mr. John Q. Public,
What about hometown heroes?
Balsam Range.
All aboard the last train to Kitty Hall. Yesterday's taking off, and tomorrow's gonna fly.
As of today, as I speak to you, they got nominated for 8 awards yesterday for the IBMAs. They lead the pack with Earls of Leicester. They were the first interview I did the first day I moved to Haywood County, North Carolina. My relationship with that band has been very, very special. The first hour I lived in Waynesville with all my stuff packed in the back of my truck when I took this job for the Smoky Mountain News. I had to go to their Papertown release party at the Colonial Theater in Canton. So I had all my stuff packed in the back of the truck. I didn't have an apartment yet, but I had a camera and my recorder and a notepad. And I went to the Colonial. The front door was locked. The side door was locked. I couldn't figure out how to get in the building, but I could hear this mandolin. And so I went around and found this random back door, and I opened it, and there's Darren Nicholson on stage doing a sound check. And he turns around and goes, "Hey, who are you?" And we started talking. He said, "You don't have a southern accent. How long have you been in Haywood County?" I said, "I don't know, about 45 minutes, And from that point forward, my relationship with those guys just means the world to me. They work as hard as anybody. You look at a band like Balsam Range, who's at the top of their game right now, plays, 3 to 4 to 5 shows a week, almost every week. And yet they go to work Monday morning until Thursday night.
Yeah, still very down to earth, and they've had a great relationship with our disc jockeys and our bluegrass music scene here at WNCW for a long, long time. Time for you to go into one more chapter. How about innovation through tradition?
With the Carolina Chocolate Drops, it's been interesting to see how big Randy Giddens has gotten. It's not surprising to me. This is a woman who has an operatic voice and also a huge passion for string music. With that band, it also harkens to the interaction of how bluegrass started, or I guess you could say string music in the United States, because you have, especially for Western North Carolina and the South, you have the intersection of the British Isles, storytelling traditions, ballad traditions, crossing with slavery. So you have African and then African-American culture coming to the South, intersecting with British Isle culture, and lo and behold, there you get bluegrass.
Oh, Ruby, honey, how you mad at your man?
I think that's one of the big takeaways from bluegrass music is that it shows you as much blood on the hands of history as love. And that's what bluegrass is. It's sadness, it's joy, it's heartache, it's everything under the sun. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think the more that we go into this 21st century of technology and distractions and instant gratification, I think the more people appreciate bluegrass for what it is, which is real people playing real instruments.
From this conversation, Garret, it's obvious you are passionate about bluegrass music and what you've accomplished with this book. How could someone get a copy?
Go on Facebook and type in "If You Can't Play, Get Off the Stage." It goes right to my page. The exact address is facebook.com/YoBroDobro. YOBRODOBRO. There's also links in that page of where you can go through PayPal and buy a copy.
Garret Woodward, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul.
That's the Friday feature interview of the week from WNCW. They're also available as a podcast on our website, which is WNCW.org. I'm Paul Foster.